Welcome to the At the Bar podcast, powered by Hansen Reynolds. I'm Tim Hansen. With me, as always, is my partner, Toby Reynolds. Today's guest, Geoff Morgan, founding member of Chicago powerhouse law firm, Croke, Fairchild, and something else.
Duarte and Beres now.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Welcome, Geoff.
Thank you.
So, we were just talking before we got started that we have no real game plan, no roadmap, no real organization to this podcast, as always. So we'll just start at the very beginning.
And you don't want me to comment on that.
You go. Fair game, man. Anything goes.
Let's start at the end first. We usually also ask sometime during the podcast, we ask what your favorite drink is. What's your drink of choice?
Boy, that's a tough one right now. I think a good martini once in a while is still tough to beat.
Gin?
Gin.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Not often, but once in a while.
Yeah, I'm with you. What are you drinking for wine these days?
That's a good question. Some Bordeaux.
Yeah.
Probably mostly Bordeaux. Some Rhone. I'm on kind of a northern Rhone kick.
Are you seasonal with your red and white wine consumption at all?
Not really.
Just red all the
Not
time,
really.
like a savage?
No, I mean both. But yeah, I'm kind of on a northern Rhone kick now. So
All right.
I like
Good
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. Well, let's start at the beginning again. Where were you born, Geoff?
I was born in Southern California.
Were you really? I didn't know
I was
that.
born
I
in
thought you
Southern
were born
California.
in Kentucky.
No, I was born in Southern California. My dad was getting his PhD at the University of Southern California, and then after he got that, he was a professor of music at Southern Illinois University. So I was in Carbondale until halfway through high school, and then he became dean of the School of Music at Kentucky, and so we moved to Lexington.
I didn't realize that. So you spent most of your education, elementary school through half of high school, all in Southern Illinois.
In Southern Illinois.
Well, that would explain how you got into law school.
That-
Not originating with your education in Kentucky. No offense, Kentucky. No one listens in Kentucky. It's all right. How old were you when you left California?
4.
Okay. So
Yeah.
do you remember anything
don't
about
remember. I don't remember much. I do, though, remember, this will give away my age, but it used to be that you had incinerators in your yard, and you would burn trash in your, so you just take the garbage out and you put it in the incinerator and ignite it and light it. And I remember the very last day that you could do that because the smog was so bad, and that was one of the very first in the late 1950s. Smog control initiatives that you could no longer burn your garbage. And I remember going out for the last,
One last hurrah.
the ceremonial burning of the garbage for the last.
So any garbage, just whatever was in the thing, you just burn it. Metal,
That was
wood,
my,
plastic.
I
Well, you guys
was
probably didn't
4,
have-
so I don't completely remember, but I do remember that last day.
Well, they probably didn't have plastic at that time anyway. So
Well, seriously, plastic, nylons, things like that. I'm sure they were putting that measure in place quickly so that people weren't burning nylon in their front yard all the time.
what's your earliest? Is that your earliest memory, or do you have an earlier one you can recall?
Interesting question. The earliest memory I have is we had an avocado tree in the yard in the house where we lived. And one of my earliest memories is climbing that avocado tree to pick avocados and getting in trouble because I picked them all and you couldn't eat them all at once. And so I remember getting in trouble for that.
And to this day, you can't stand guacamole.
No, I like guacamole.
That's a very romantic first memory, climbing avocado trees in Southern California as a 2-year-old kid or a 3-year-old kid. Was the incinerator thing nationwide, or was that
It was
particular?
California. It was California specific.
The banning of them, or even the use
The
of
banning, well, that I don't remember that. I know that it was in California. I don't know if that was nationwide or I don't think so because I think you still can probably burn trash in many parts of the
Only
country.
one way to find out.
them. But an incinerator was a specific thing that most houses had, right? It was not just a fire pit, right?
It was not a fire pit. It was actually an incinerator, and in our case, my memory is it was stone. And you put the garbage in, and then you light it. I guess mostly probably paper, stuff like that.
So did you follow in your dad's footsteps musically?
I play the radio. No.
You're a
I
musician.
play, well, as you know. I mean, as you know, I play a little guitar and a little piano.
Did you do that after you got out in high school, and then did you study music ever, like in college?
I took piano lessons and studied music in college a little bit, but early on realized, one, I wasn't that good of a musician, and two, it's tough to make a living as a musician. So something I thought I'll do it as a hobby.
Did you ever graduate from the little pianos and little guitars to full-size pianos and guitars?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you finish up high school in Kentucky and then undergrad where?
Went to undergrad at University of Kentucky. Took a year off to be a ski instructor at Copper Mountain. And then went to law school, and I was going to go to UCLA to law school. But because I was a faculty kid at Kentucky, tuition for law school for me was $550 a year.
Wow.
We paid more for preschool, for our first son, Chris, per year than I paid for law school.
And you got about the same level of education.
How did you become a skier in Southern Illinois?
I just loved it. I always loved it. We had some friends at SIU who were from Minnesota, and so they were skiers, and they would take me up. And I just, I've always enjoyed it. So decided the thing to do was to get it out of my system, take a year off. And I do remember at the top of Copper Mountain on the last day of the season, I was 21 years old, and I remember thinking, I guess I'd rather be a 30-year-old lawyer wishing I were a ski instructor instead of a 30-year-old ski instructor wishing I'd gone to law school. So
You already had thoughts about going to law school?
yeah, I knew it. That I had to finish college still, but I always wanted to be a lawyer.
Why is that?
It's funny. Because I was on the debate team. I'm argumentative by nature. I like that component of it. And as I may have told you before, in second year law school in corporations class, I had this aha moment when I realized that corporate law is all forward-looking. You have adversaries, but if you're putting together a merger or some kind of acquisition, you get the deal done, both parties are happy as you've moved on to the future. Litigation, no offense, what you guys do, is all backward-looking.
Oh, that's fair.
You're trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And I just thought it was a moment in law school, and ever since then I, changed my mind and became a corporate lawyer.
But you had nobody in the family or anybody who was sort of the inspiration for going to law school? It was all just because you had an innate interest in debate kind of thing?
Yeah, nobody in the family. I'm the first lawyer in the family. And but it was just
did your
something I
parents
always
encourage
wanted to
it at all, or did they not care one way or the other?
They encouraged it.
For $550 a year,
I mean,
why not?
They said we need somebody to take care of us in our old age. So
There you go.
yeah.
First gig after law school?
I wanted to work at a big firm, and I wanted to work. So it was either Chicago or New York. Chicago was closer to home, Kentucky, and so. But we didn't have, interestingly, UK did not have a very active placement office at that point in time. So I had no idea, how I was going to go about getting a job. So I sent letters and resumes to the 50 biggest law firms in Chicago. I got 47 rejections and 3 interviews. And of those 3 interviews, I got 2 offers and started at Lord Bissell and Bruck.
Wow. What year was that?
You don't.
Let's not.
It actually
with
has a
trivial
7.
matters.
There's a 7. Yeah, 1979 was
Okay.
my year I was a summer associate.
Were they doing OCI on-campus interview stuff back then? It just wasn't robust.
It just wasn't. Well, they were doing it, and much to I didn't realize this, but normally the OCI interviews are in the fall before they're during the fall semester for jobs next spring. Well, I had no idea of that, so I thought I'm going to be way ahead of the curve, and I'll send all these letters out before spring break. So, when people were starting, just weeks later, and so the 3 firms that I guess gave me interviews took pity on me, or maybe I was, We've never had anyone from Kentucky before, so at any rate. So I started at Lord Bissell and Bruck.
So
Did
you
you have
know?
to take
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was going to add. You didn't do a summer clerkship or anything. Like
I did at Lord
that.
Bissell.
Oh, they
I did
That
at
was
Lord
for a
Bissell.
summer
I did at Lord
gig.
Bissell.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha.
Summer, it was a summer gig.
Okay, I see. So you
yeah.
worked between your 2L and 3L a year
Right.
at Lord Bissell Brook,
Right.
and then got a full-time job. You,
Right.
you didn't screw it up over the summer.
They made us an offer. Yeah, that was nice. It was nice. They made us an offer before we left.
Did you have to take the Illinois bar?
Yes.
Would you have had to take a Kentucky bar had you stayed in Kentucky?
Why wouldn't you?
Well, was there a diploma privilege there?
No.
Has that always been a Wisconsin thing?
To my knowledge, Wisconsin is the only place that has a diploma privilege.
I kind of thought that was something that was more common for the state law school to keep people in state. And that's why I thought maybe Kentucky would have been a place that had it, but I guess maybe not.
Yeah. No.
How long were you at Lord Bissell?
So I started at Lord Bissell and was there for 4 years. And I got hired away by Schiff Harden in Waite, partially because Schiff Harden had a more robust, active corporate practice than Lord Bissell did. Lord Bissell was a fine firm. And the M&A activity and sort of the capital markets activity was going gangbusters, and Schiff needed people. And I had done a deal across the table from Schiff, even though I was just a mid-level associate at the time. But then I got recruited and went there.
Just directly by the firm. You didn't have resumes out there with a recruiter or something.
No, I was recruited directly by the firm. And I was there for 8 years and was made partner there, and then got hired away by the firm that all three of us had worked at in the past, Michael Best, and got recruited to come help build their corporate finance and capital markets practice. And part of that was my wife at the time was a Wisconsin native, and they knew that, so there was a Wisconsin connection. And so that led us up to Milwaukee. And, as you guys know, I was there for 25 years.
Yeah.
And then started, and I'll give Hansen Reynolds a plug here, because as I had the opportunity to leave Michael Best and take through some conflict issues, take some big clients, I Tim, as you know, came to you and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about going out on my own. Why don't you, can you help me with that?" And originally, you and I, or the three of us, had discussed my joining you, but then we decided that if I'm more of a pure play corporate, securities lawyer, and you guys are more of a pure play litigation firm, let's not dilute the brands. And so, and as you know, then I left at age 60.
Crazy, man.
Left Michael Best, started a new firm, and my own firm, and did that for 5 years or so, and then met Jessica Fairchild. You introduced it. I think, actually, you introduced me to Jessica.
I like to think that I'm single-handedly responsible for the entire success of your law firm.
It never, honestly, it never would have happened without you, because you introduced me to Jessica. We then joined forces, and interestingly, for anybody who's watching this that's probably over the age of 60, I'm 20 years older than Jessica Fairchild, and the obvious name for the firm would have been Morgan Fairchild. But for the actress from the 1980s, and every time you Google Morgan Fairchild, her picture came up, and we decided we can't do that. So we called it Fairchild Morgan, and then within a year, she was introduced to Drew Beres and his friend Patrick Croke. Patrick was from Sidley, and Drew was from Kirkland. Drew was a funds lawyer at Kirkland. And they had wanted to go out on their own, and all of a sudden, Jessica and I had the infrastructure, And so we literally, the four of us, talked for 4 weeks, and on October 28th, just over 5 years ago, in 2019, we shook hands, opened a bottle of champagne, and said, "We're going to form this firm." And we started a month after that.
And Toby was just saying before we started there, we just got a LinkedIn notice or an email about your 5th anniversary party. How many lawyers now?
We have 89 right now. So we started, there were the four of us, Croke Fairchild, Morgan, and Beres. We had, I think, 5 others with us at the time. So it was maybe 10 or 12 lawyers, and we're now, within 5 years, 89 lawyers and growing. And I'll note that the business model hasn't been, if you build it, they will come. The business model has been, we were all good lawyers from top firms in the United States, and as we hired people, we hired top lawyers, mostly laterals, from the best firms in the United States, and that has allowed the firm to get some really high-quality clients. So we do, we have public clients, we have private equity firms that we do M&A work for. We represent a lot of founders who have formed companies and maybe sold and maybe looking for the next thing. And so it really has been, at this stage in my career, I am so pleased to be a part of it because it's growing, but it's growing responsibly.
Yeah, that is fast, though.
Yeah.
Did you ever have misgivings or concerns just about the pace of the growth?
We've talked about it because there is some concern that are you growing too fast, but I think again it's been the opportunities that have presented themselves. I give a lot of compliments to the current management team who have approached this responsibly, and so we have thought about slowing down, but the opportunities come, and we're up for it. Yeah, we're up for it.
Wow, that's impressive.
We were just talking the other day about the day that you came out of Michael Best. Was that January 1, 20? You just said you were 60, so was it 2014?
2014.
It was 2014. Okay.
2014. I started January 1, 2015.
January 1, 2015. That's what it was. All right, because you and John Bush started outside of Michael Best on the same day, right?
We did, but the interesting story there was as you guys know, you were talking to John about joining you, and I was talking to you about officing with you, not joining you, but officing with you. And of course, you couldn't tell me about John, and you couldn't tell John about me. And so there was one office, as you'll recall, that was one of those window offices, not window to the outside, but window to the inside. And I scored that office, and John had wanted it, I think, and you kept telling him, and you were circumspect, about the reason, no, John, you can't have that office. And so he had announced he was leaving, and then I announced at the firm I was leaving. And I went down to his office, and he goes, "Gosh, I'm so happy for you." But he didn't know where I was going. And I said, starting January 1st, my office is going to be, pause, in Hansen Reynolds. And John, that's why you can't have that office.
That's funny.
So crazy.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Geoff? What have you learned about law firms? So you've been at 4 law firms. I mean, 4 if you count the various iterations of Morgan Fairchild and Fairchild Morgan as one.
Yeah.
Is let's start with this. Is the current success of your firm, would you say, culture? Is there a different way that you're doing it than other law firms you've been part of? Is it clients? Is it personalities? What do you think it is?
It's a great question, and culture clearly is a part of it. When we formed, when Jessica and Drew and Patrick and I decided to form the firm, part of the idea was we want a culture where we're a little more nimble. We are going to distinguish ourselves from the best firms, from the Sidleys and the Kirklands of the world, in that we can pivot a little more quickly, in that you will get, the A team, or you'll get more responsiveness and more attention from us, especially if you're a small, or medium-sized client. So we think we can distinguish ourselves that way, but we have a culture committee, and we take that very, very seriously.
And the first thing relates to how the client sees the firm and why you think you can service the client better maybe than a megalith firm. But with the culture thing, is that to you more an aspect of the client being serviced, or the talent you can acquire?
It's more, I think, the talent we can acquire and the level of satisfaction and happiness that we have practicing law. We think it's important. To develop that culture. I mean, we're a nascent firm. We started in COVID. I mean, we started December 1, 2019, and February 20 of 2020, COVID hit. And, even for things like culture, for our first holiday party, everybody was still quarantined. So we had a Zoom holiday party. I went out and bought some wine, so everybody could have the same bottle of wine to open at the same time at the Zoom holiday party. So there was an element. We hired Second City, of all things, to facilitate our Zoom holiday party. And while, we were skeptical at first, it actually worked pretty well. They did some skits, and then we did little breakout comedy skits. where 4 or 5 of us would be with one person from Second City, and we went through some stuff, and it was a lot of fun.
I never heard about that.
It was a lot of fun.
that story.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
What about money? I mean, when you talk about these different things, how do you guys, especially because you're playing in a big city where, in Chicago, where you are getting lawyers and you're trying to attract lawyers to compete for clients that the same Sidleys and Kirklands are competing for and the same talent that they're competing for. How do you deal with the money thing? So, because at the end of the day, do you think that you're seeing a shift in people's need to make the absolute most money, or are you paying the most money and that's why you're getting people? How does that play into your calculus?
I think and I'll preface this by saying I'm no longer on the management committee, but I think we decided from day one that we would pay competitive rates. We didn't want to, as you guys know, cost is a two-edged sword. To some extent. So I think we decided we were going to pay market or close to market rates. We would, we can charge a little bit less, for our work than other large firms do, and so that helps us get more business. I think we, all of us, and you two are included in this. We understand the business of practicing law. Not just the professional part, but the business of practicing law. And so nobody wants to get every last nickel at our firm. We do, we work hard and we do well, and so far it's worked. But I don't think there is an element of we've got to have every last nickel. And you guys remember, the compensation discussions at our former firms, in the past.
Yeah.
But you are pretty much paying what you think are market rates, but you're still able to charge your clients a little bit less. I mean, do you make that up just in overhead being slightly lower, better, more efficiency, equity partners who just are willing to take a little less? I mean, where does the gap get filled?
I can't really speak for anybody else at this point. I do think that there is an acknowledgement that, if you look at what top partners at Kirkland are making or top partners at Sidley are making, it's certainly less than that. But it is a, more reason. We still work hard, but you're not looking at 2,500 billable hours from associates.
Yeah, I do believe there's a space there, right? You only have to take a few percent off, kind of an edge off of those ridiculously high rates and ridiculously high salaries in order to make it work at a little more comfortable pace.
Are you hearing from clients, concern, comment, whatever, about the hourly rates that some of the, top 50 law firms are?
We hear, but we hear, in a favorable manner because we are less than those top firms. So we do hear some people, and again, our sweet spot are kind of medium, mid-market clients, public and private clients, private equity firms. And so those are ones that could pay, the rates of the top firms in the country, but they don't have to with us. So it's a little bit less. So we do hear, we hear people complaining or lamenting about the, where hourly rates are going, especially for senior partners. But
are they always paying you hourly, or are you doing some stuff that's on a piece of the action or a contingency? Or
we don't do as much as you guys do on a contingency basis. We don't really take matters on a contingent basis. We will do fixed fee arrangements for some good clients, and that, as you know, is the trade-off between a known volume of work that you can figure out the margins on, and so the client gets some certainty as to what its expenses are, and we get some certainty as to what our revenues are going to be.
Are clients surprised that the guys that are with you, guys and companies are with you in the early going, are they surprised at your growth?
I think people are surprised at our growth. When you think about it, we have been, the growth has been rapid, unusually rapid. And so people look at that. I mean, we are, I'll just also take another quick left turn. We are a woman-owned business now. When I stepped off the management committee and relinquished my equity, that allowed Jessica and Lisa Duarte to take, a majority of the equity in the firm. So we are now a certified woman-owned business, minority-owned business, and that has opened some doors for us, which is nice. So.
And you've expanded beyond pure transactional, right? You've got litigators now.
We have a litigation group. We have a wealth planning group. We have a robust government relations practice that's actually called Point of Difference Strategies. So it's a different entity from Croke Fairchild. We have employment law as a specialty. We have some IP capabilities, though we don't do patent prosecutions. And I may be leaving something out, but so we try to be a full service firm, and part of that was born out of the fact that as we had those opportunities with clients, and we were referring things out, we started thinking, why are we referring this work out if we can actually capture a practice of some people that we know. I guess tax too. We have a robust tax practice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've kind of crossed the Rubicon to maybe not a large law firm, but to a decent sized law firm. In that, are you overly dependent on any particular lawyer or a particular client? I remember at Michael Best for a while they used to talk about some client was 3% of the revenue, and that was too much. They thought, right? But it's not that big. That's not that high, actually. But are you guys kind of beyond any of that sort of startup firm stuff?
Yeah, we have a very diverse, and this is a conscious effort, but we have a diverse client base. I don't think there is one client that accounts for more than, 7 or 8% of the revenues. Mm-hmm. I may be off on that a little bit. And I think even with Michael Best, my memory was that it was not 3%, but it was more like 6 or 7%. At least when I started, I predated you guys.
Yeah. It might have been aspirational to get down to nothing more than 3%. I can't remember either.
Yeah. But let me flip it back to you for a second and ask you guys that same question. What are you seeing in terms of fee pressure?
It seems to me like in the last, I've sort of noticed in the last 5 years that for sure the hourly rates for partners at bigger firms have taken huge leaps up. They were always higher than we were. We're sort of similar philosophy, right? We're not going to try to collect top rates necessarily, but the spread now is so much larger. The delta between what we're able to charge and make a profit at is so much different than what the big firms are at. I remember in the Wall Street Journal, I don't remember how long ago this was, it was like the first $1,000 an hour lawyer. And it was like breaking the 4-minute mile. Yeah. Now that's commonplace, right?
That's the part that's so amazing to me is that when the $1,000 ceiling was broken through, it took off like a rocket ship. It became $1,800 overnight. You'd have $1,800, $2,000, $1,500 rates. And my perception, Geoff, is that we used to feel, and I think this is probably still true, that for some of our best clients, it could be $5,000 an hour, and it doesn't matter to some of these big
because
corporate,
it's bet the farm stuff.
Right. If it's a big M&A deal or it's a bet the farm piece of litigation, it probably doesn't matter. Even for smaller stuff, it's a rounding error on their on their P&L, right? So it's not going to really matter. However,
and it's the service. It's the quality of work they hire. They're hiring Tim Hansen or Toby Reynolds or Geoff Morgan,
right?
More than the firm because they want that judgment and that counsel, and that's what I think helps support the larger rates.
I think that's right. But I guess my ultimate point is that even with all that, there does seem in the last couple of years a response that even if money is no object for me as the client, for certain clients that's pretty much the case, there's something viscerally offensive about how huge these rates have become. And when it's 3x or 4x, I think that there's a little bit of pushback like there might not have previously been. I do still think that bet the farm M&A deals or litigation still is going to be and always will be a different calculus. But for a lot of work, I do think there's a little bit of pushback that I've never felt before until the last year or so on the astronomical rates.
But can't you guys take advantage of that?
Oh, absolutely.
Capitalize
No,
on
we
it?
can.
Yeah.
We can. That's. I mean, it's a huge advantage for us because we're not trying to get $1,800 an hour. And that's why I asked you some of the earlier questions about how money plays into it, because at the end of the day, you still got to figure out how to, like you said, make the business of law work. And my basic working thesis is you can do it at you can have a nice living, have a very fulfilling career at a lot different price points, even if you just shave the edge off of it. But if you certainly take 20% off of some of these astronomical rates, you're still doing pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, our margin, again, I'm not on the management committee, but our margins are decent. And, we also, just to go back to culture for a second, it's important to us that our younger lawyers and our mid-level lawyers go, this is a cool place to work. This is a fun place to work. We got good partners. We're learning. We're being taught well. We're getting good opportunities. That is very, very much important to us.
Do you guys have any kind of upper size limit that you're targeting? Is there a number you won't go over? Are you aspiring to a certain thing, or is it really opportunistic?
I think it's opportunistic. Again, I'm not, I'm not the one who makes those decisions anymore, and I'm quite content, I'm quite content not to be.
They don't want you making those decisions,
Yeah,
Jeff,
but
let's
I
be
think,
honest.
I think if we can do this responsibly and the opportunities continue to present themselves, I do think we're looking at some different geographic footprints. I do some work, interestingly, some of the accounting firms in the UK, and as you may or may not know, accounting firms in the UK can also have lawyers, inside, but they can't in the United States. So we've gotten some traction as those UK accounting firms have clients that are doing US acquisitions or, cross-border work. We're becoming, one of the go-to firms, for those to do that work. So I say that because, we may or may not look at a geographic footprint outside the U.S.
That's interesting.
Not sure, not sure yet, but the opportunities are there, and we're developing those, and it's it's interesting, and it's nice to be, it's nice to be regarded as a go-to firm for stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So back to where this all kind of went off on this tangent is you've been at 4 different firms. You talked about what you think maybe separates your current firm, including your current firm. Were there clear personality differences, would you say, among the 4 firms, or are all law firms built a little similarly?
There clearly were personality differences. I mean, at Lord Bissell and Brooke, that was a white shoe. Well, that and Schiff, they were both kind of white shoe firms, that had grown up in or had developed in a very genteel, with a very genteel practice. At Lord Bissell, Harold Ickes, who was Franklin Roosevelt's Secretary of the Interior, was a member of the firm. Was a member of the firm for a while. So there was a lot of history and a lot of history in those firms that there isn't in the current firm. I think I started practicing in 1980, and I think the development of the business of practicing law has come a long way since then. So I think things are a little different than they were when people just went along lockstep and came up through the ranks at firms. So I think that's different. I think the sort of quality and attention to detail, if you really want the top clients, you've got to dot the I's and cross the T's, and you've got to, you've got to give the client what they want, because they can call Kirkland or Sidley or go down the street if you don't. So I think the opportunities are greater, and I think we're a nascent firm, so distinguishing ourselves, is certainly important.
How you said your wife at the time was a Wisconsinite. Did you therefore were you looking to come to Milwaukee, or did somebody just know that you might be enticed by Milwaukee?
I was doing a deal across the table from Michael Best.
Who was it? Across from who?
Across from Todd Lindstroth.
Okay.
And I was representing Newell Rubbermaid in the acquisition of a client of one of Michael Best's clients. And I got to know Todd over the 5 or 6 months that this transaction took place. And he learned at the time that my wife was from Wisconsin, and we spent a lot of time in Janesville, where her family was from. And so that's what led to the, would you ever think about moving? You know, and look, we lived in Oak Park, Illinois, so to get out of town, took an hour and a half in every direction, you went before you were out in the country. And I remember thinking, well, maybe there's 1 0, less on the end of the deal size, if I moved to Michael Best, but still the quality of life is good. And, as we all know, it's great here.
Yeah. Milwaukee rules.
So was it then a constant 25-year struggle for you at Michael Best?
No,
Did you take to it?
Just we grew. I mean, you guys know the Michael Best had some growing pains, but it's a good firm. It's a politically active firm. But just sort of the natural way things worked out, I had the opportunity to take a large client that had a business conflict with Michael Best, and so just decided that it was,
What do you think the Michael Best personality was in that spectrum that you were talking about?
You guys know that. You guys know that as well as I do.
Okay.
And
you're also active politically.
I mean, yeah. But I think no. I mean, it's a politically active firm. It's a firm that had a lot of history in it. It's a firm that's genesis was more labor and intellectual property, as you guys know, and I think still is. And the corporate group was not the first and foremost reason for the firm's existence. And that, even though it was a healthy corporate practice, I think as time went on, I thought it would be nice to be at a firm that's a little more transaction or corporate oriented than Michael Best, which had more labor law, more IP activities.
Well, it was and is a great firm.
Oh, yeah.
We always, Toby and I always talk about it. Was we loved being lawyers there, and lots of great friends.
We learned a lot. We learned a lot.
Yeah, it was a wonderful place, and is.
Yeah.
So you were in Lexington, Kentucky then for like 9 years, huh?
9 years.
9 years.
9 years.
Do you get back there very often? Did you like Lexington?
I do. I support the university. I'm a donor to the university, so I get back.
Is that jacket a homage?
This is not Kentucky blue. This is not Kentucky blue.
Carolina blue.
And I get back. I have some friends there. The Alumni Association is pretty good about having people back for the Keeneland horse race season in the fall. Sometimes in the spring, but certainly in the fall. So I get back to the races every few years.
Do you have relatives there?
I don't anymore.
Okay.
I don't anymore. No. So nice. It's a nice place. It's a wonderful place to be from, but much different. Much different culture.
So what are your favorite activities outside of being a lawyer these days?
Well, I am a ski instructor, so I am an alpine ski instructor at Sunburst. And not the biggest resort in the world, but it's 30 minutes from my house. So I teach generally on the weekends and sometimes on weeknights, but it's also a good way to exercise. And I get out and
we felt really bad about the fact that we did not go skiing at Sunburst once all last year because that was a weird season.
It was a weird snow season.
It's amazing to me that you guys skied as much as you did because there was almost no natural snow. Now, I know Sunburst has really improved its snowmaking abilities, but the weather was also very warm.
Yeah,
all winter long. It was crazy.
It was difficult. It was a weird.
They got through that okay, you think?
They did.
Good.
They did.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and there's more. I mean, looking forward to opening day, hopefully sometime in the next month or so. Mm-hmm. So I do that. I do a lot of road cycling, as I think you guys know, which is satisfying and fun. And
no, I was told you were golfing more than you used to. Is that eaten into your road cycling or not really?
A little bit. I enjoy the game. I had never been a golfer. Tim, I know you are. Do you golf?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay. Mm-hmm. We should.
Not like Tim,
we
but
should play sometime.
Nobody golfs quite like me, Geoff.
But I find, it's an interesting game.
It's just kind of a funny conversation because I'm used to everybody thinking that I'm the golfer. He said, "I know you're a golfer, Tim." It's kind of a funny moment there for me.
Yeah.
which I'm fine with, but it's a funny thing.
But it's an interesting game, for a number of reasons, as you both know. I mean, the hand-eye coordination is a part of it, but the
Maybe that's
mental
my
game,
problem.
the mental game is,
be also my problem.
to be able to make a mistake and then just let it go and move on, and so I took this up like 3 years ago, and I try to play regularly, but, as you two doubtless both know, there are people you play with who just get so wrapped up in it or aren't able, they create tension. They create so much tension. And I think it's a good lesson to be able to play and let go of that. So
Do you do it purely for fun, or do you use it for client development and that sort of
use
thing?
it for client development when you can. Yeah.
So a couple of things. One is Richie, who is, you met when you came in here, right? Did you meet Richie?
He runs the joint.
He's a super golfer. Competes for the state amateur.
Yeah.
The second thing is if either of you have not watched it, I had a trip to Loveland, Colorado last week for work, and on the way out and the way back, I started watching the Netflix series Full Swing. You guys seen it? It's interesting because I think the idea of it was they were just going to interview and follow professional golfers. I think that was the premise anyway, but then they happened to hit right as the Live Tour was beginning. Do you know about the Live Tour?
Yeah.
And so it's pretty fascinating because a lot of the stories are about, I think I've only seen like 3 episodes so far, but it looks like each episode kind of focuses on one golfer. But a lot of the episodes are about a golfer who's in the throes of the struggle of, am I going to jump ship and go to Live? So it's really a really interesting series.
I'll check it out.
Let me then, you brought up something, so let me take a left turn in the conversation because we've, I think the quality of series that are on Netflix or Amazon Prime or other, any other, media outlets has just been extraordinary over the last 10 years. So let me just ask you, if you had to pick, in the last 10 years, let's say, top series where the character development was good, the acting was good, and the plots were good. Are there things that come to mind?
Oh yeah,
Mad Men.
Mad Men, okay.
That's got to be, if not number one, a rotating top 3.
Yeah.
I just love that show.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad, I thought was fantastic.
For me, it's 3. I mean, Mad Men is definitely my number one. And, like a lot of these things, it's like movies. Your favorite movie, often it's a time and a place kind of thing. But Mad Men, I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
We are in the middle of Peaky Blinders right now. Have you watched that?
I have not.
Okay, it's very good. I wouldn't put it quite on that level, but it's very, very good. And it's a series where I was a little worried that it was going to fall apart a little bit, but then it kind of has come back in season 4 or whatever we're in. And then the third one for me, and I still say this, I think that Ozark was almost perfect. And I'm not a person who usually likes a lot of violence, but I have never seen a show where literally every episode was just masterful in maintaining the tension. Did you watch Ozark?
It was Laura Linney was in Ozark, and I like her as an actress. I found it difficult
hard to watch.
To get not hard to watch, just difficult to get engaged with.
Okay,
right? That was one that I never was. I never was so consumed by it that I couldn't turn it off. And so I've probably watched half of 15 episodes.
Okay, to me it was more that sometimes they were uncomfortable to watch, but I don't know. I the thing about that episode, that series that surprises me too, is I think it was written or maybe produced or directed in all of it by Jason Bateman, and so it was pretty incredible to me because I didn't really feel like there was a big clunker of an episode. Most of these series, I feel like there's kind of a clunker of an episode every season or two. And that one sort of maintained for me all the way through. So those 3 are kind of high on my list.
I would not put this next one in the top 10, but it is my new guilty pleasure, which is Yellowstone. Kevin Costner.
I have not watched that.
It's insane. It's completely insane. I think more people died in the first season of that than died in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. So we on the trip to Colorado last week, 2 people in the car were talking about Yellowstone because they both love it. But they both acknowledged an interesting thing about that I have seen in some of the series, because some of these series, like Succession, for example, I really like Succession. Did you watch that? Short, only 3 seasons. But a lot of these series don't know when their end is going to come, right?
Yeah.
And so they sometimes write in a way that they don't tie up all the threads. And so that was the comment about Yellowstone. As much as these guys loved it, like it's among their favorite shows, they said it's amazing sort of how many loose ends. Apparently there was a bomb on a plane or something. And one guy brought up, he said, "Do you remember this episode? Nobody ever resolved that there was a bomb on a plane," or something like that.
Yeah.
I've never seen the series, but everybody raves about it.
It's more of like a soap opera. I mean, just melodrama. It's over the top. But
Did you watch 1869 also, or whatever it's called?
no, I haven't started the
18
spin-off
whatever.
ones.
Yeah.
There's 2 spin-off ones.
I heard that one is also very good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all in.
There's also some Kevin Costner dispute with the main writer, right? And that's
I just know that he's not coming back for either. The new season starts this weekend, I think.
Oh, wow.
Season 6 maybe, and I don't know if that is going to have Kevin Costner in it or not. So, but it's a ridiculous show, but it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
What were your 3?
I guess my 3, Mad Men would be at the top.
Interesting.
You know,
That's
certain that was just such a.
And that's when there were no loose ends there.
No.
They
No.
tied everything
No,
together and
right.
it ended perfectly.
No.
I mean, it's just an amazing show.
But to me, and as you and I, as we talked about this, because I was office sharing when Mad Men was still on with you, but as our firm began to grow and as we gained some traction and we picked up a client or two, it was like I felt as though I was sort of living, the creation of Sterling Cooper Draper Price, when it happened. So that, but I think the character development in that was good. Downton Abbey is in my top 3, period piece, but that was quite good. And then a couple of other ones that I don't know that I have yet put them in the top 3, and they were a little shorter. The Queen's Gambit.
that was pretty
I
short.
didn't finish it,
Yeah.
but
That was a good one. Killing Eve. Have you watched Killing Eve?
never even heard of it.
That is a great. This assassin, this Russian assassin, and she's an attractive female Russian assassin, and she has not much of a conscience, so she takes pleasure and delight in the manner in which she dispatches her targets. That's good. And then a new one with Kerry Russell called The Diplomat, which just
I heard
finished
that's
its
real
second
good.
season. That is really,
yeah.
really
Just
good.
heard about that.
The problem is there's so many that are so
Yeah.
good.
So much
I mean,
content.
people
Yeah.
recommend stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have time.
Well, and think about that. It was part of my question was, I grew up in an age of some good television programs. The Dick Van Dykes of the world, and the Mary Tyler Moore shows of the world were good, but an awful lot of junk. We grew up in the age when there was an awful lot of junk on TV, and I am so happy now that the quality of the programming is so much better than
Each one looks like a feature-length movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine the cost to make these shows.
Yeah.
Did either of you watch The Americans?
No.
Okay.
not.
We started that's one that we started watching that I thought had some possibility, but it just didn't kind of go far enough. We didn't carry it through. I know a lot of people who say they love that show. I've never seen Breaking Bad.
That was
It's
good.
great.
That and Better
I
Call
love
Saul,
that.
the prequel.
Those are really good.
Yeah, those are good. But you're right. I mean, there is so much good stuff out there. There just isn't enough time to watch it all.
Yeah. No, there's not.
Yeah, no, I was talking to somebody one day and he said, I don't watch any TV. I was like, why not? I mean, TV's so good. I was like, why would you not watch TV?
Yeah.
It's like the best thing going.
Just take a little cocaine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so good.
So let me just ask one more question because Tim.
God damn it! This is our podcast, Jeff.
Sorry. But
ahead.
Tim is, as most of you know, is a really, really talented musician, guitar player, composer. Talk a little bit, because I know you play in bands, one or more bands now. Talk a little bit about the balance between being a full-time named partner at a law firm, playing in a band. What kind of therapeutic benefit does it give you? How do you balance? I played in bands briefly, and I had to work. Had to work hard just to be ready to do a show. Talk a little bit about how you balance.
Yeah, well, I mean, so one band that I'm in, Comfort Shag. It's, unfortunately, that's the real name. But we rehearse Wednesday nights in Cedarburg. So it's pretty nice because it's just a set schedule. You just show up on Wednesdays at 6:30, 7, whatever, and play and love the guys, great friends, great musicians. And so it's not too challenging from like a schedule perspective. And then we probably only play maybe 5-6 gigs a year, like 3 or 4 in the summer, and then like one winter gigs, and those are usually on a Saturday. So schedule wise, it's not too bad. But the sort of, I guess, therapeutic, I think is what you said. I would say it's sort of meditative, because when you're playing guitar or when you're, playing in a band, whatever your instrument is, it is a little bit like meditation, because you really can't think of anything else. You can't really, it's not because you shouldn't daydream. You literally are so focused on that one thing that other thoughts can't enter your mind, even if you wanted to. So it's kind of an interesting way to have a complete diversion from everything else. So for me, it's a nice, creative outlet. It's a lot of fun, and it is, I do think it has some kind of mental health benefit, if you want to call it that, because you completely check out. You can't think about jackass opposing counsel or some other damn thing. You're just playing guitar.
Yeah.
Well, I think a line on a lot of stuff for me, at least. I don't know if this applies to you with music, Tim, or you, Jeff, with whatever it is you do. Is well, you were talking about golf, and you said some people it's almost stressful to golf with them, right? Yeah. And I know there's a line, right? I mean, I used to play a lot more golf, and when you're playing a lot of golf, you're trying to get better, and you're trying to achieve. And the thing about golf, you can't achieve perfection, so you're just trying to get as good as you possibly can. So it's this never attainable thing. You can't be a perfect musician, but you can get better and better and better. But then at some point you decide, that's not my thing anymore. I'm not trying to. It's recreation, and I'm just going to, for me, it was like I used to always think this is the year I'm going to really put into the golf game, really get it a lot better. Golf, a ton of times in the year, and at some point I just was like, you know what, it's okay. I'm going to golf my 10 rounds a year and some outings and just leave it be. And I would assume that's a little bit like that with music is at some point you were trying to really get better, and then at some point you said, this is just a pastime now.
Yeah, it's, I do want to get better at guitar, but it's a different, just schedule and family and work kind of dictate that you can only do so much. So usually what I'll do is I'll have my unplugged electric guitar in front of me when I'm watching TV, and I'll just kind of noodle quietly just to kind of, keep the fingers on the strings kind of thing. But yeah, if you were taking it seriously, you'd practice 2 or 3 hours a day and sight read and all that kind of jazz.
Well, even if you're trying to get better, I guess putting it a better way maybe is, are you trying to accomplish anything, or are you just doing it?
No, it's really just for fun. You want to do as good as you can, so you don't embarrass yourself, because we do play live. But it's just rock and roll.
So what about you, Toby? We know what Tim and I do now. What do you do in your spare time? What do you like to do?
Well, I do golf. For me, I think that for me it's kind of interesting. I think that Wisconsin has become more and more of this as I've gotten older, which is it's like 2 years in a year, right? There's the winter year, and then there's a summer year. We all know we went through a summer that has been unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen a summer that went literally all the way through November 1st, and now here we are, November 4th. It's finally getting to be fall. Yeah. But so, golfing, but being on the water. We're sailing or boating or swimming, up in Door County a lot in the summer, as much as we can on the weekends, and then in the winter we ski as much as we can. Now I've also got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, so there's kids involved in everything, and a 22-year-old daughter, who's now in Cincinnati. So I feel like a few years ago, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I felt like if you just take everything that you do once a year and put it on the calendar, your entire calendar, every weekend day is full. And it really is not an exaggeration to almost say that every single weekend moment you've got something that's sort of scheduled, or just the holidays alone. Yeah. It's amazing how much you fill up your life. I wish if there were one thing that I wish I had more time for, it would be just, doing the Aaron Rodgers thing and crawling in a black cave for a day. I've never done anything like that. I feel like I've told Tim before, I almost feel like I'm looking for things not to do.
Yeah, it is easy to overschedule. And I think people confuse busyness with productivity. There's almost like a badge of honor to be incredibly busy all the time. And
there's an element of contemplation. There's an element for just, at least for my own peace of mind, to spend a little time, thinking.
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness and thinking. And we are so used to sound bites, and being barraged by things. And when you think about this, it used to be we wrote in paragraphs. And a paragraph would have a central idea, and then the sentences in the paragraph would expound upon that. And then for legal writing anyway, when the fax machine came out in the mid-1980s, nobody wanted to let you think anymore. Nobody wanted to say, here are the documents, make the revisions, send them back to us, in a couple of days. They wanted it immediately. So what happened was the end of the paragraph then ended with a semicolon, and the phrase "provided, however, that" was added. So you could add more information to the paragraph without rewriting it. Clumsy, but it worked. And we now, we think in terms of sound bites. We think in terms of bullet points. And I think, the ability to be able to step back from that and contemplate or think, just think. And you guys both, you have it, too. I have clients that say, Geoff, think about this. I just want you to think about this for a couple of days, and then let's reconvene.
Mm-hmm.
So
your fax became email, became text messages. I mean, it's just the culture. Yeah. I've wondered. I haven't seen this take effect yet, but I remember it with my 22-year-old daughter. I remember early driving, on road trips, and her saying, "I'm bored," And I remember I'd always say, "Good, I spent 2/3 of my childhood dead bored, just bored out of my skull all the time." But the truth is, you thought a lot. Road trips, for example, you stared out the window and watched the world go by. Yeah. And just hour upon hour staring out a car window. And I think that there's definitely something about that. The whole screen culture has completely changed that. And I do worry about it. I haven't seen anything that's been dramatically awful about it. I mean, this is not a discussion about social media and stuff like that. It's just about concentrating on bits and bytes on a screen. I don't know. I don't know where that's going to go, because it does seem like contemplation is way, way down.
Well, it is sort of addictive, right? I mean, I think that they design these features in phones and things like that to keep you engaged as long as possible.
Endorphin hits,
and endorphin hits and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how quickly everybody just did it.
Yeah.
Wholesale, just like, and once you're connected and addicted, it's pretty hard to are never without your phone.
Are you both on social media? Are you both on Facebook or?
I mean, I have accounts, and I check in on Facebook like once every 2 or 3 months just to see if anybody had a kid or something like that. Yeah.
But I just had this conversation because I was in 2 weeks ago. We were in Disney World, and there's this whole culture of post photos or it didn't happen kind of thing, right? And when you're at a place like Disney World, you definitely get that feeling. I mean, I did not post a single thing anywhere. And I kind of thought, well, should I? And my wife is not on social media. But my thing with social media is that, and I just had this conversation at a dinner party on Saturday night, is that I've seen a few people who use it as like a travel log or something where I kind of get some usefulness out of it. But otherwise, I do think that social media is generally a bad thing. I don't think it's all bad, but I think it's on the balance bad. And here's my reasoning why. Forgetting about all the teenage girl stuff, which is definitely bad, I think, and we keep hoping that somehow social media dies before our little kids become teenagers, but that won't happen. But it's this. For me, it's humility, right? Humility used to be a thing. Your kid did something and your parents almost sheepishly acknowledged it if somebody said, "Oh, I heard, Toby's the valedictorian or something." It was kind of all just more like the approach was always humility. And social media, my thing is by its nature, and I'm not criticizing people who use social media because I do think it's not all bad, and I think there's some value to it, but it's by its nature not humble, right? You are absolutely by its nature saying, "Look at me,"
right?
And then you add to it, "Look at me for this curated, perfect set of events that I've been involved in," and you do get this feeling, like I said, that should I post that I've been to Disney World? I mean, everybody acts like you go to Disney World and you're the best thing since sliced bread, but it's a weird look at me culture that did not exist when I was a kid. It was the opposite, if anything.
I found, I mean, I tried Facebook for a number of years. I haven't done Instagram, and LinkedIn is more professional thing. But I found the same thing. People are posting just to say, I did this, I ate this for dinner, isn't this cool? And originally I thought there was some value in connecting with people in my past from high school or college or others that I was pleased or I was happy to know what happened to someone or to see how, what someone had done with his or her career. But then about 2 years ago, I just realized that the minimal benefit I get like that is not worth the time sink and really the lack of substance. Lack of substance. I've had, as we're close to the end of this election cycle, and we're all, I think, dying for it to end. But I've had some decent. I'm slightly on the left side of the aisle. I'm just a little bit left of center. But I've had some very good conversations with friends of mine, some of whom are extreme right or center right, some of whom are extreme left. And we've been able to have some decent conversations with good discussions over, leaving the personalities of the presidential candidates out of it for a minute, but just on policies themselves. And policies and how it fits into the world, and then the Mideast situation. Though anybody could have been saying that for the last 60 years, But so I have enjoyed, and I bring it up because I have enjoyed, some really nice, substantive, thoughtful conversations with people.
In person or over social media?
Over the phone, or in some cases over Zoom, but not over social media. Gotcha. I guess is my point. Yeah. And I think
not over
over social media.
I thought maybe you were going to say that you use it as a communication platform, which it could have some value. Yeah. But I mean, there's always been some level of keeping up with the Joneses that is way before social media. But it just seems like it throws gasoline on that fire. Yeah. And that's why I generally think it's not a good thing. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Well, maybe that's the underrated segment. So social media overrated.
Yeah.
Social media overrated.
By the way, back to your contemplation thing, though, I do think that the respite from the soundbite world that you say you live in is, I mean, being at the top of a ski hill, being on the water, I don't run, but jogging, being on a bicycle. I mean, there are these things that, on a ski lift, you'll see somebody on their phone once in a while. But for the most part, I do think those are things that people do disconnect.
That's a great point.
And they take in the views from the top of a mountain, and they really are not on their phones a lot at a ski hill or any of those places I mentioned.
Well, then the phones drop off. They drop off the chairlift.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where'd you get those cufflinks?
These cufflinks were a wedding gift from my ex-wife. So when we got married, she found them at some store in Chicago, and
kind of Art Deco.
They actually are from 1930s sometimes.
Oh, that's cool.
And I've just
She gave it to you for your wedding to her, for getting married to somebody else.
Sort of little wedding
Give
presents
these to your next wife.
Yeah, we gave each other, but I.
What are they? Just a design, or
I think
are they
it's just a design? Yeah, it's just a sort of an Art Deco design.
Chrysler building-ish.
Yeah, Chrysler building, somewhat like that. So,
so there you go.
There you go.
Well,
there you go. So, what are your underrated, overrateds?
Well, we've done a few. Lobster was definitely overrated.
Do you agree with that?
A little lobster goes a long way. It's good, but it's like some foods are wonderful. Some foods are wonderful to have, just not often.
Okay. All right. What else have we done on overrated?
There was a little bit of a foie gras thing at one point.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think caviar might be accurately rated. I don't think it's over or under. I think it's right in the sweet spot. It is a luxury good. It's expensive, but it's also, when it's good, it's really good. I think I'd throw that there.
Yeah.
It's about adequately rated.
Yeah. Was this food limited? Was this?
No, it's just the only thing I ever think about. So that's how it usually comes up. I think we might have said Camus is overrated.
I think that's right. That might have been out there. Actually, from off camera, Lindsay can answer that question. Is that why you made the Camus comment earlier? Okay, so yeah, I guess we did do that.
Camus on wine?
Yeah.
I mean, there is so much good wine out there, and there is so much, and I enjoy it. I don't spend a ton of time at it, but you're a big wine collector. There is so much good stuff that never shows up in the supermarkets, and you find some things you like and you buy them, and they're like an old friend. The vintages will vary a little bit. The taste will vary a little bit. From vintage to vintage, but generally speaking, they are wines that are subtle and just very. And in many cases, they can transport you somewhere else.
Yeah, the best ones for sure.
The Spanish ones are the Rhones. Again, I'm on a Rhone kick right now, but they really can. You understand the grapes, you understand the taste, and they can really take you to a different spot.
Yeah,
different
for
place,
sure.
different
For
place.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Northern Rhone is interesting. I mean, that's an old school expression of Syrah. I mean, compare that to Australian Shiraz. I mean, they couldn't be more different.
More different.
Same grape,
more
just
different.
Different place, different winemaking.
Well, even the Cabernet, or even the Pinots. I mean, the Pinot from Oregon and California to Burgundy.
Yeah.
I mean, just huge difference.
Huge
difference. So,
What's your favorite restaurant in Milwaukee?
There is a right answer, so be careful.
yeah, that is a tough one. Loopy and Iris, I've had some good meals at. Buckley's, a little place,
Right by
Yeah,
Loopy and Iris.
right by Loopy and Iris. I think is a nice
Loopy's
warm,
a spectacular looking
warm,
restaurant.
warm spot, and
Haven't been to Buckley's in a while.
yeah,
Worth going. Huh?
yeah.
How's the wine list?
It's small but decent. Small but decent. Yeah. What are your favorites?
Big fan of Birch. Huge fan of Birch. Kyle's doing really wonderful.
We went there once, I think, years ago.
Yeah. Well, it used to be
Birch and Butcher.
Birch and Butcher.
Yeah.
It's different now.
Okay.
It's
Then
called
we have-
Birch on Pleasant. Same space, but
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
different owner.
Yeah.
Have you eaten at the new, what's the restaurant you and I were just talking about? Room Service? Is that what it's called
Room
down
Service
on
in
KK?
Bayview.
No.
You haven't? Okay. Brand, have you ever been to a Momo Me? Not Momo Me.
Umami Moto?
No. Now I can't think of it.
rice
and roll. Rice and roll.
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's apparently the same owners as Rice and Roll, but
It's a spectacular interior. I mean, everything's super, super high end. Big menu.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is definitely overrated. Menus on QR codes that you got to read on your phone.
I'm tired of those. I just that's in airports too, and I just to me that just takes so much of the personal component of the service, out of it.
well, plus sometimes it's not possible to navigate. You can't read it, and if you blow it up, then you don't know where on the menu you are anymore. and-
Especially room service. It's like a 20 or 25 page menu.
Yeah.
And trying to do that on your phone and remember what you saw 8 pages ago, I mean, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
By the way, an area, not that it's overrated or underrated, but that technology they're starting to realize it doesn't work, is the touch screen in a car, right? So dials, like, if you're going to try to tune your radio, right? You grab a dial, your hand is on it, you can turn it while you're driving. If you have a screen that you're trying to touch and your fingers moving even slightly, you can't hit these buttons. So they're starting to rethink how all that's going to be. So the car of the future might not just be a big computer screen like they sort of anticipated.
Well, I think speaking of computer screens, I think I must have put my wife's car recently in valet mode because she can't open her center console to get any of her stuff out. I think there's a button on the touchscreen I must have accidentally hit that locked it. So
Funny.
yeah, it's goofy.
Anyway, anything else you want to talk about? Otherwise, that's
No, this has
kind
been
of
a
what the show's been.
Yeah, wide-ranging conversation.
Yeah.
It's been quite
that's
nice.
what
I
we do.
appreciate your having me.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Good,
Stuff.
yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
Good.
Oh, that's the last question I want to ask you. Do you know why you're GEOFF versus a JEFF?
Because my mom, who was a physics major at Berkeley, liked Geoffrey Chaucer, and they liked they liked that name at a time when it wasn't as popular. So as a kid, especially in Southern Illinois, my name was butchered.
Geoff.
More than once. But it was my mom's affection for Geoffrey Chaucer.
There you have it.
Learned so many
Yeah.
interesting things about Jeff. All right. Thanks.
All right. Good. Thanks, guys.